"Don't expect me to obey you," she said. He cut the rope. The knife flicked once. The hemp fell. Her wrists showed red rings. He didn't answer. He only stepped back and gave her space. Dust blew across the auction yard like a tired sigh. Men on the plank rails leaned in. Boots creaked. Coins clicked. The noon sun burned the clappered roofs of the dusty town. A sign swung over the saloon, whining in the wind. Somebody laughed low. Somebody spat near the trough. He put $2 silver on the block. Then one more. He didn't argue. He didn't look at the trader's eyes. He only waited while the sheriff checked the paper. The sheriff's badge shone like a square of winter light. "Business is business," the trader muttered, counting slow. "Law's law," the sheriff replied, voice even and dry. The girl stood straight though her hands shook. Her hair held a feather and a bit of dust. She wore a thin deerskin dress and old moccasins. Her stare was hard as a ridge of black rock. She did not thank him. She did not plead. She watched like a hawk that had seen traps before. He unbuttoned his coat and set it near. He nudged a tin cup toward her. Water sloshed. She didn't drink at first. Then she did, careful. He turned his shoulder to shade her from the sun. He still hadn't said his name. The cowboy rarely did. Action traveled ahead of words with him. A horseshoe nail hung on a leather cord at his neck. It was black iron, smoothed by thumb and time. He took it off. He placed it in her palm. "It's nothing," he said at last. "Just a promise." He stepped away again as if the space was holy. "Let truth be seen, not shouted," the wind seemed to say. The trader scoffed. "You bought her. You handle her." The sheriff's look turned colder than creek water. "She's free under the law once he signs," he said. "Free is free whether you like it or not." Papers rasped. A pen scratched. The world held its breath. A bell clanged far off, calling hands to the forge. Heat rolled from the blacksmith shop at the corner. Wood smoke climbed slow as prayer. Hammers rang time. Wagons rattled past the livery with broken traces. A rancher drove a few tired steers down Main. The frontier watched the way the frontier always watched. Quiet on top. Questions underneath. She eyed the leather cord and the iron nail. "What is this for?" she asked, voice low and wary. "For keeping," he said. "For finding again if we're lost. Tools matter," he added. "Even small ones." Her fingers closed around it. The bead of sweat cooled. A softer wind ran its hand through the street. "You'll regret this," a man near the saloon called. "You bought trouble with a pretty face." The cowboy's glance slid across him like shade. He didn't take the bait. He didn't move fast. He only shifted so she stood on his left side, closer to the sheriff, closer to the light. She touched the nail once, as if testing its weight. "I won't obey you," she said, steady again. "I'm not asking that," he answered. "Only asking time. For what?" Her eyes were flint and river both. "To walk you past the gate without hands reaching," he said. "To see you safe to the edge of this town." "Safe?" She half smiled like someone remembering winter. "Safety is a story men sell with rope." "Then I will not sell it," he said and turned. He faced the sheriff and lifted the signed page. "Witness," he said. One word, enough for law. The badge nodded. The law took a quiet breath. Around them, the dusty town returned to its heartbeat. Cards slapped the saloon table. A dog barked once. The trader folded his money and cursed the weather. A church bell answered the forge in slow reply. The cowboy offered nothing except a path to walk. He stepped down from the block and left room for her. She kept the nail in her fist and walked beside him. Not behind, not in front, beside. The street was long and the afternoon long with it. Every window seemed to watch. Every shadow held a story. She said, "If I go by my choice." He said, "Then choose," and waited without moving. Her choice was a single step toward the open road. Boots and moccasins made different sounds on dust. They sounded for now like two people not owned. They passed the sheriff, who tipped his hat once. They reached the edge of town where the wind smelled wider. The iron nail warmed in her hand like a small star. "I'll walk alone if I must," she said. He matched her pace. He kept half a step to the side, not ahead. The dusty trail lifted under their feet like breath. Far behind, the town shrank to a few leaning roofs. The saloon sign was only a dark tooth in sunlight. Out here, the wind unknotted the street's whispers. He didn't speak. He saved words like bullets. The cowboy watched the ground, then the sky. Clouds stacked over the distant ridge, slow and white. A hawk circled, calling the same old note. Leather creaked. Spurs ticked softly. Her moccasins drew a quiet line through dust. They crossed the dry wash near the cottonwoods. Water hid there, cool under shadows and stones. He stepped to the side and knelt first. He checked for snakes, then cupped a drink. He moved away, leaving room at the bank. She knelt and drank, watching him over the ripples. "Your name?" she asked, voice even now. "Cal Hart," he said. Nothing more. "Cal," she tried it like testing a beam. He folded the canteen and hooked it silent. A rancher's herd bawled far off, faint as memory. "Where do you ride?" she asked at last. "North," he said. "A line shack and a forge." "Blacksmith work?" Her eyebrow rose, curious despite herself. "When storms break wagons," he said. "When shoes twist." He glanced at the iron nail in her fist. "It knows heat and pressure," he added softly. "So do you." The wind carried the rest away. She stood taller at that, less braced, her shoulders set like good timber, calm and sure. "I had a name," she said after a while. "I still have it, Anoki." She let it stand. He nodded once, as if accepting a treaty. Names were not sales. Names were gifts. They followed the trail beside a thin river. Willows trailed their fingers in the current. The frontier widened with every step they took. It smelled of whetstone, sun-baked sage, and wood smoke. He pointed to a rise with a few junipers. "Camp there," he said. "Light lasts another hour." At the ridge he gathered deadfall, not green wood. He built a small fire like a careful prayer. No flare to call trouble, only steady flame. He set a tin to warm beans and coffee. He laid his hat down where she could see. Hands open, motion slow. Nothing sudden. She kept the nail in sight on a flat rock. Iron caught the low sun and held it. "Why that shape?" she asked, finally curious. "Holds a shoe to a hoof," he said. "Small thing, big work. Keeps a horse true." "So it keeps a path," she said, mostly to herself. They ate without hurry. The beans were plain. The coffee tasted like old stories and smoke. Coyotes spoke from the far side of the river. He listened, then added a stick and no more. Anoki watched the flame lean and return. Her eyes were not hard now, only watchful. "I don't owe you," she said, testing the truth. "You don't," he agreed. "Law saw to that." "The sheriff did one clean thing today." She nodded at that, remembering the badge's light. "Law can still be used," he added after a pause. Word sworn. Tracks read. "Wrong man named True." She looked toward the town's dim edge. "The trader will not forget his coins," she said. "He'll talk," Cal said. "Talking leaves prints." "And I can speak," she answered. "I remember faces." Her voice steadied on the last three words. A new quiet rested around them, almost gentle. Night climbed the ridge like a slow blanket. Stars pricked through, cold and exact. Cal pulled his coat, then stopped himself. He set it near the fire, not on her. Choice stayed with her where it belonged. She drew it close after a minute, on her terms. A breeze turned the flame and played the grass. Crickets stitched the darkness to the ground. Anoki touched the iron nail, then set it back. "Maybe it keeps more than a path," she said. "Maybe it holds a promise to be seen." "Let mercy ride quiet," the night almost whispered. He checked the horses in the lines twice. He laid his bedroll downwind of the fire. He faced the trail, hat tilted, hands free. Her bed of boughs rested higher within light. He watched the sky until his breath matched it. She watched the river until it sounded like home. "Tomorrow," he said before sleep took him, "we go to the forge, then to the courthouse." She answered with only a small steady good. The word floated, then settled like an honest coin. In the dark, the iron nail kept its small star. Hope, fragile and warm, stayed near their hands. "She'll vanish by dawn," the trader said. But she didn't. Anoki woke before the sky cracked with light. Mist rolled low, silvering the grass by the river. Cal had already saddled the horses. He moved like habit, quiet as a prayer. The forge waited north, and the courthouse beyond that. They rode side by side again, silence between them. Every sound was sharp in the morning cool. Bridles clinking, the soft push of hooves, a meadowlark's lonely call somewhere in the reeds. She wrapped her fingers around the leather strap, the iron nail hanging warm against her palm. "Why a courthouse?" she asked. Cal glanced at her, then the trail ahead. "Law left a trail like any outlaw," he said. "The papers prove you free. The voice proves it louder." He spoke of witnesses, of the sheriff's ledger, of men who sold what they didn't own. Her face changed at that. Half disbelief, half ache. "No one will listen to an Indian girl," she said. "Maybe not," he replied, "but they'll listen to a blacksmith." He met her eyes once, steady and unflinching. "There's a man up north who owes me a hearing." "And you'd risk that for me?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Sometimes truth travels better in silence. The trail wound upward through cedar and shale. By noon, the wind came hard from the west, carrying grit, carrying memory. He tied a kerchief around his mouth and offered one to her. When they reached the ridge, the land fell wide. Fields stitched with fences. A barn's red ghost faded by sun. A church steeple pointed like a finger at heaven. The forge stood close by. Stone walls, smoke-chimneyed, iron scent thick as rain on dust. He led the horses to water, then lifted the latch. Inside it was hot even before the bellows blew. Anvil marks, hammer rhythm, the sound of order. He hung his hat, rolled his sleeves, and worked. Anoki watched from the doorway, arms folded. He shaped iron like thought, slow, certain, deliberate. Each strike seemed to say something the mouth couldn't. He made a small horseshoe, child-sized, and laid it beside her on the bench. "For luck?" she asked. "For truth," he said. "Luck needs truth to stand." He dipped it in water. Steam hissed like a whisper. The nail she held gleamed, remembering its family. They stayed through sunset, the sky the color of rust. He banked the coals and wiped the sweat from his brow. "Tomorrow," he said, "we ride to town." Her throat tightened at that single word. Town meant faces, judgment, eyes that measured worth. She nodded anyway. "Then we ride." That night they camped just outside the pasture. The fire was small again, the talk smaller. She traced circles in the dirt with a twig. "My father was a scout once," she said softly. "He died near the canyon of White Rocks. They left his name unspoken, like it never mattered." Cal stirred the fire with his boot. "Names matter," he said. Even whispered. She looked at him long, eyes bright from flame. "I want mine to stand in daylight again." "It will," he said. "Tomorrow you speak it there." She turned away, but her lip trembled once. The wind rose, dry and restless, snapping sparks into the sky. She caught the nail on its leather cord, slid it back around her neck. It felt heavier now, more alive. Let courage walk soft. The night seemed to breathe. When dawn came, they saddled without words. The forge slept behind them, faint smoke curling. Ahead waited the courthouse, and in whatever truth could bear. The sun rose behind their backs, turning dust to gold. And somewhere far off, the trader's anger rode too. Justice had woken, and it wasn't done yet. "They won't listen to me," she whispered. He kept riding anyway. The courthouse stood at the end of Main Street, white paint peeling, flag limp against the post. Wagons crowded the hitch rail, and townsfolk gathered slow, pretending to mind their business, but watching all the same. The trader's voice carried before his boots did. She ran off with him. He barked to the deputy. "Stole from me on my horse, my money, my property." Cal's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Words in his world were for last, not first. He tied the reins to a post and stepped down. Anoki stayed on the horse, her back straight as the truth. The sheriff came out, same badge, same tired eyes. "Morning, Hart," he said, tone balanced on a knife. "Morning," Cal replied. "You still keeping your law clean?" "That's the plan," the sheriff muttered. "Depends who tracks the dust." The trader thrust a folded paper toward them. "Bill of sale," he said. "Proof she's mine." The sheriff read it slow, lips pressed thin. His eyes moved from Cal to Anoki, then to the trader. "This says you bought an indenture, not a person," he said. "Different under the new code." "Same difference." The trader snapped. "She's property." "Not here she ain't," the sheriff cut in. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Men shifted, women whispered behind gloves. Anoki's heart hammered so loud she feared they'd hear. Cal stepped forward, removing his hat. "I signed her release. 3 witnesses. Ledger in your office." The sheriff nodded once, remembering. The trader's face flushed dark as bad whiskey. "She'll rot in dirt before she talks law to me." "She'll talk," Cal said, voice steady as a nail in oak. "And you'll listen." He turned to Anoki, his nod small but sure. "Say your name," he told her. "Say what's yours." She slid from the saddle, feet meeting dust and destiny both. Her moccasins left clear prints in the street. "My name is Anoki," she said, voice trembling at first. "Daughter of Neha and real Stonepath?" My father fought with the scouts that saved this very town. He died free. I live free." Her words didn't rise like thunder, they landed quiet, but they rang true, stronger than noise. The crowd went still. Even the horses listened. The sheriff folded the paper and looked at the trader. "You got anything else to say?" The trader's hand twitched toward his belt. Cal moved before the thought could finish. His boot caught the man's wrist, sent metal clattering. The crowd gasped. The sheriff drew his gun slow. "No blood," Cal said, stepping back. "Just truth." The trader, red-faced, spat dust and curses. But he didn't reach again. The deputy picked up the weapon, unloaded it. "I'll deal with this," he said, voice rough but fair. The sheriff turned, writing in his book. "Name's Inoki," he said aloud, marking it down. "Free citizen. Witness to illegal trade." His pen scratched the line that made her story real. Inoki exhaled, a sound halfway between sob and song. Cal stood beside her, silent as stone. He didn't touch her, but his presence held the air steady. The trader was led away, still swearing. The crowd began to drift, whispering of strange justice. The courthouse bell struck noon, bright and final. Inoki turned to Cal. "You could have walked away." "I did," he said. "From everything else." She looked at him, seeing more in that stillness than most men could speak in a lifetime. He nodded once toward the open sky. "Sometimes the trail circles home without you knowing." She held the iron nail between her fingers. It was warm again, pulsing with light and meaning. "This belongs to both of us now," she said softly. "Keep it," he answered. "It remembers roads better than men." "Let mercy ride quiet," the wind whispered through the flags. And for a heartbeat, even the dust seemed proud. She should be thankful, the deputy muttered. She was not. Inoki stood in the courthouse yard, shoulders square, as the last of the townsfolk drifted away. Their look still lingered, part pity, part respect, and a thin thread of fear. Fear of change, maybe. Cal stayed near the post, his hands folded on his hat brim. The sheriff stepped out, ledger under one arm. "The law's done its part," he said. "You're free, girl." "Truly free." The word girl hung awkwardly in the air like a fly trapped in a window pane. Inoki nodded once, slow and proud. "I was always free," she said. "Now paper agrees." Cal half smiled, a small flicker of something human. The sheriff caught it and looked away. "Trader's locked up till the circuit judge rides through," he said. "Won't change his nature, but maybe his trail." Cal gave a quiet, "Much obliged." He turned toward the street, expecting her to follow. But she didn't move. She stood rooted, watching the courthouse steps, the flag, the door. Inside that wood and white paint, her voice had lived. It echoed now, not in fear, but in fact. "Do you ever forget the faces that doubted you?" she asked. Cal paused. "Only when I stopped looking at the sun." They walked past the saloon where talk still clung thick. The same men who'd bet coins on her silence now whispered about the sheriff's new backbone. One woman in a window above the store lifted her chin slightly, respect in small currency. Inoki caught it, tucked it somewhere deep. They reached the hitch rail. Cal loosened the reins, but she touched his sleeve. "What will you do now?" she asked. "Fix shoes. Build hinges. Wait on the rain," he said. His tone was calm, but his eyes had distance. "And you?" he asked in return. "I'll find my people," she said, though softly, as if the words were still trying on their own truth. "The trader's camp took 3 others like me." Cal's head lifted. "Children?" "2 girls, 1 boy," she said. "The boy can't walk right." "Then we'll ride tonight," he said simply. "No law will go after them," she warned. "Law's tired." "We're not," he said. He tightened the saddle cinch, checking the girth. "You don't have to come," she said. "I didn't have to stay," he replied. "But I did." Her lips parted and no argument came. They rode out under a hardening sky. Thunder cracked miles off, crawling closer. The wind carried the smell of rain and trouble. Inoki tied her braid tighter, eyes sharp as flint. "Will you kill them?" she asked. "Only if they insist on being the wrong side of mercy," he said. The trail ran between tall grass and low hills. Lightning flashed, showing the road like memory. Each time the light came, she saw the nail at her throat. Iron and storm, both forged for truth. "Let courage walk soft," she whispered again as rain began to find them. By nightfall, they reached the trader's camp. Lanterns burned in 2 wagons, yellow and mean. Figures moved, shadows of men and children both. Cal dismounted, water dripping from his hat brim. "Wait here," he said. "If it goes wrong, ride for light." "I don't run for my own story," she answered. He gave a small nod. "Then we tell it together." He stepped forward, slow, calm, sure. The rain hissed against the iron nail in her hand. And behind them thunder spoke like judgment arriving late. The night was about to remember who it wronged. "Get back," one of the men shouted. Cal kept walking. Rain streaked down his coat, each drop a mark of patience. The campfire hissed under the storm, flaring and dimming. Anoki watched from the trees, her pulse steady but high. The trader's men drew up, faces wet, hands on belts. Lightning burned the ridge white for a heartbeat and then gone. Cal stopped within 10 feet of them, calm as stone. "You've got children here," he said, voice flat as steel. A man spat. "Ain't your business, blacksmith." "It is if it breaks the law," Cal replied. Another man laughed, the kind of sound that expects fear. But fear had already left him months ago. Anoki stepped out of the rain, holding the nail in her palm. The men blinked. They hadn't seen her behind him. "The law heard my name," she said, clear and sharp. "They'll hear theirs too." Her dress clung with rain, her hair wild with wind. But her eyes didn't move from theirs, not once. The smallest shadow, a child, peeked from behind a wagon. Anoki's throat caught, but she didn't show it. She lifted the nail high, its cord glinting lightning. "This marked my freedom," she said. "Now it marks the truth." The men looked uneasy, muttering under the downpour. Cal's hand rested near his holster, but he didn't draw. "You can ride out," he told them. "All of you. Leave the wagons, take your boots, and go clean. Or you can stay and wait for the badge to follow." The man who'd laughed earlier stepped forward. "Who'll make us?" he sneered. "You and the squaw?" Cal's hand moved just once, so the hammer clicked. Silence. Even the rain seemed to stop for it. The man froze, face shifting from pride to reason. No one else moved. Not a breath, not a curse. "Walk," Cal said quietly. "Now." One man broke first, then another. The rest followed, slow, bitter, but alive. Anoki exhaled, shoulders falling for the first time in hours. Cal holstered his gun and stepped toward the wagons. 3 children stood there, small, cold, half afraid. He knelt and smiled a little, the kind that didn't need words. Anoki wrapped her shawl around the youngest girl. The boy with the limp stared at Cal's boots in awe. "Is it over?" one whispered. "Almost," Anoki said. "Just need the dawn." They built a new fire from the wagon wood, flames climbing, soft gold, like forgiveness. The thunder had rolled away, leaving only rain smell, and the world seemed cleaner for it. Cal looked at her across the glow. "You led today," he said. "Not me." "I spoke because you gave me silence to stand in," she replied. He nodded once, eyes reflecting fire and memory. "Sometimes that's all a man's meant to give." She smiled faintly, the kind that carries no weight, only peace. When morning broke, the hills were blue and breathing. The sheriff rode in with 2 deputies, slow and steady. They took the trader's men without fight or fame. He saw the freed children, the calm fire, the truth written plain. "You did half my job for me," he said to Cal. "Law's only half the work," Cal replied. "Mercy's the rest." Anoki placed the iron nail back in his hand. "It belongs to both sides of the story now," she said. He turned it once, then tied it to her wrist with the cord. "Keep it," he told her. "It remembers the sound of hammers, and it knows you're stronger than heat." Her eyes glistened. Rain or tears, no one could tell. By noon, the children were bound for safety. The sheriff tipped his hat and rode west. Cal turned toward his horse, reins in hand. "You're leaving?" she asked. "For now," he said. "But the trail circles wider than it looks. And if it leads back?" she said softly. "Will you follow?" He looked at her once, long and quiet. "If it leads to truth," he said, "I always do." She nodded, touching the nail at her wrist, its iron gleaming like memory under the new sun. Wind stirred her braid, the sky clean, the day wide open. "Let truth be seen, not shouted," the morning whispered. As he rode away, his silhouette cut sharp against the ridge. Anoki watched until the dust became light. Freedom wasn't a gift, it was a road. And for the first time she was walking her own.